All right, good morning, and welcome here during spring break. There are many that are gone away, but for those of you that have stayed home, we're glad that you joined us here this morning. And before I introduce our speaker here this morning, I'm gonna just make one more additional announcement. As Lauren mentioned earlier, there will be baptism on Easter Sunday, and that's only 2 weeks from now. And so next Sunday, if you or someone you know is looking to take that step of obedience in their walk with Jesus, we're having a baptism class following the service. Please let myself, Pastor Josiah, or just email in info@orwellgreendale.ca and let us know if you're interested, because we just want to walk through what is baptism, what is it, what isn't it, why should we be baptized, and also we want to help you and encourage you to write your testimony, your story of what Jesus has done in your life and what he continues to do in your life. And so just letting you know that, please let us know if you're interested, because we'll have a meeting following the service. We bring in food for that, and so we need to be able to order some food so that we know who's actually showing up. And so thank you if you can do that in advance. With that said, this morning is Mission Partner Sunday, and I love Mission Partner Sundays as we get to highlight the ministries that God has, again, brought into our church congregation that we're saying, hey, we want to walk alongside of them as they work both locally and globally. I know coming up at the end of April, we have a global mission partner coming in from India. Pastor Abraham will be here, I believe it's April 26th. And so we get to bring him in, but today we get to hear from the Cyrus Center and what they are doing for at-risk students within Chilliwack and Abbotsford. And so this morning I'm going to call forward Maren, Kroeker, and she's going to come forward and she's going to just talk about what the Cyrus Center is doing. And she's been at the Cyrus Center for 9 of the last 14 years. She's worked in various roles, from volunteer to youth worker to community and community engagements and fundraising and all those things. And right now she gets to come to local churches and just share about what the Cyrus Center is doing. And so we're excited to have you here this morning. Let me pray for you, and then we'll just turn it over to you. Father God, we just thank you for Maren and also all of those that call Cyrus Center just the place that you have called them to minister. We thank you for their impact within our community, both here in Chilliwack and Abbotsford, and we thank you for what you're going to continue to do through them. Help us to have ears to hear what you're doing and hearts to say, God, how can we continue to partner? We just thank you for what you've laid upon Maren's heart. Help us to hear. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Good morning. I just want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you for partnering with Cyrus Center and having me here to speak and share with you. My name is Maren, and as Darren said, I've been involved with, is this echoing for everyone or just me? Is it echoing? Oh. So I've been involved with Cyrus Center on and off for the last 14 years. I first heard about Cyrus Center personally as a teenager myself, sitting in chapel at the MEI Secondary, and our co-founders came share about what they were doing in the community. I had no idea that there was people my age living on the streets right here in the Fraser Valley. It was unfathomable to me. I couldn't believe how that could possibly be possible in a place like this. But it resonated with my heart. When I was old enough, I filled out a volunteer application and I submitted it, and I started volunteering at Cyrus Center. I did that for 3 years, and then I took on a summer student position there. Sometime during my 3rd year, I was working a weekend shift, and a new volunteer started. I thought he was pretty cute, and then that's how I met my husband. And I then started working at Cyrus Center full-time in fundraising, and have been back and forth between completing my master's degree and having a few children. But now I'm back. I just returned from maternity leave a few months ago, so I'm still trying to catch up. So if I sound scattered today, I do apologize. It's been a while that I was off work. But I just want to share a little bit about myself, just to let you guys know that Cyrus Center is a huge part of my heart, a huge part of my story now. I met my husband there. Now we have lived in Yarrow for the last 9 years and have 3 kids, some chickens, some cats, and a dog. And so now my role at Cyrus Center is getting to do things like this, sharing the work that our ministry is doing right here in our own backyard, and just advocating for the lives of the children that we reach. So thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope that what I share with you today will stick with you, and just thank you for the role that you play in impacting the lives of the youth here in our community. So for those of you that don't know, what is Cyrus Center? Who is Cyrus Center? So we are a faith-based nonprofit organization right here in the Fraser Valley, and we provide 24-hour supports and services to youth who are experiencing homelessness right here in the Fraser Valley. Our name, Cyrus Center, comes directly from the book of Isaiah. I will raise up Cyrus to fulfill my righteous purpose, and I will guide all his actions. He will restore my city and free my captive people, and not for a reward, I, the Lord Almighty, have spoken. And that's what we want to do. We want to free youth and families here in the Fraser Valley who are living in captivity from whatever they're facing, and we want to instill in them the hope of Jesus Christ. So that is, in a nutshell, what we do, our mission, showing God's love with practical and relational care to youth and families. So it's not just sharing the gospel, but it is also meeting their most basic physical, emotional, mental needs. So who do we serve? Anyone from the age of 12 to 24 who's experiencing homelessness or in need of supports relatively related to that. So our primarily youth who are in need of housing. We offer a variety of different services related to housing, but I will talk about that in a little bit. The youth we are working with are not just experiencing homelessness, but exploitation, abuse, hunger, poverty, addiction, mental illness, and severe trauma. Our hope and prayer is to see youth reconciled with their families, and that is part of the services we offer. That is not always possible. Sometimes it can take years for that healing and reconciliation to take place, and we are honored, and it is a privilege to walk alongside youth and their families for years to hopefully establish that reconciliation, and if not, see them flourish and see them succeed in their lives. We have seen it in some of our programs where youth will live in our housing programs for a number of years while they work on some life skills, maybe address their mental health and addiction. And then after a number of years of living with us, we have seen them go back to living with their families. So it is not our timeline that we work with, but it is God's timeline, and it is good. So a little bit of our history. Why did Cyrus Center start? So in 2004, service providers in the community conducted what we call a point-in-time count, and they asked youth who were living on the streets what their needs were, what needs were not being met for them. And the needs were they had nowhere to get a hot meal. At the time, the only place they could get a meal was at the Sikh temple. Otherwise, we were seeing youth exploiting themselves just to have a meal. They had nowhere to shower. How were they supposed to go to school every day or get a job if they had nowhere to shower? Same thing for laundry facilities. They wanted access to laundry facilities. At the time, the only place they could do laundry is at a laundromat. I'm not even convinced those exist anymore. And again, they had to be able to pay for that. The only way they could get a shower was if they went to the rec center, but again, they had to pay for that. They also wanted somewhere where they could meet with adults outside of the regular 9 to 5 business hours. Youth don't experience crisis only from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So they wanted somewhere where they could go anytime and talk to an adult who would actually listen to them and help them. And lastly, they needed somewhere to sleep. Their youth were sleeping in abandoned cars, on the streets, in very unsafe situations. It was not uncommon for youth to be exploiting themselves just to have what we take for granted every day. That they were going to horrendous lengths to try to access some of these things. So our co-founders, Les and Joyce, said to each other, they said, these are simple things. We can do this. We can provide this for the youth in our community. So in 2004, Cyrus Center started as a 7-day-a-week drop-in center. So they were open from 12 to 8 every day. Youth could have a shower. They could do laundry. They would get a hot meal. They could use it as a mailing address if they wanted to get a social insurance number so they could apply for jobs, all of that. But after a year, it was not enough. At 8 o'clock every day, the staff were still having to say goodbye to the youth and just hoping and praying that they would be safe that night. So in 2005, Cyrus Center opened the very first shelter for youth in the Fraser Valley. And we started with 4 beds in Abbotsford. At the time, we were serving youth just ages 12 to 18. To this day, I think the youngest youth that Cyrus Center has ever housed is actually at 10. So that went on for a number of years. At some point, we were presented with a house from a local foundation, and that's when we started Babbage House, which I will talk about in a little while. And then in 2014, the city of Chilliwack approached us and said, hey, we really like what you're doing there. Can you come here and do the same thing? So in 2014, Cyrus Center Chilliwack opened, and now we offer the same services in Chilliwack that we offer in Abbotsford. At the time, the city of Chilliwack actually had the highest rates of youth homelessness than any other community in Canada. For various reasons that we don't exactly know why, but we were able to offer 24-hour day services there as well. And then in 2020, the provincial government approached us and said, hey, we really like what you're doing here. We would like to entrust you to operate a new program. And so the Switchback opened, which is a 22-bed, 15-unit apartment building in Chilliwack. And again, I will talk about that in a little bit. So around 2018, what we're experiencing, what happens is when a youth turns 19, they're no longer eligible for services that they may have had through foster care, youth agreements. So we're actually seeing youth re-entering into homelessness somewhere between 19 and 24 years old when they were cut off from so many of those services that had once provided them with their stability. So in 2018, we expanded our services to reach that 19 to 24 demographic. One study found that 46% of individuals raised within the foster care system would experience homelessness at least once by the age of 26. So Cyrus Center's goal is to stop that cycle of homelessness by reaching young adults up to the age of 24. So that is where we started and where we are now. We started as a small organization with 2 staff and 1 volunteer, and now we're open 24 hours a day. We have over 60 employees across 9 different locations here in the Fraser Valley, and thousands of individual youth have been able to access a safe place to sleep. And we could not do this without the support of the local church, so thank you. You play a role in Cyrus Center's story, and we are so, so grateful for that. Our work is not done. There's still much more to do. But let me just touch a little bit on our programs more specifically. The concept of Cyrus Center is biblically rooted, not just from the names, but from the services we offer. On more than one occasion, I've been asked by youth, why do you do this? Why do you come to work? Why are you here? Why do you help us? And it is an honor and privilege to get to tell them that the God who created heaven and earth, who made them in his own image, loves them and has called every single one of us to help those around us. It's not just the staff at Cyrus Center. In the book of Matthew, Jesus tells parables and he says, "For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me." They looked at him and asked, "When did this happen?" And he says, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters, you did for me." So that is what the role that the local church is playing, and that's the role that Cyrus Center is playing in the lives of these youth. We are feeding them. We are giving them something to drink. We are inviting them in. We're clothing them. We are looking after them. So we have day programs. These are a drop-in resource center. So from 12:30 to 8 o'clock every day, youth age 12 to 18 can access our drop-in resource center. Here we provide meals, showers, laundry facility, and basic amenities. They can get hygiene supplies, toiletries, dry new clothes if they need it, one-to-one support, referrals to other agencies in the community, things like employment coaching, writing resumes, learning interview skills, getting the right clothes for a job interview. If they need services that we don't offer, we'll work with them to work with other agencies in the community to access things like mental health services, doctor's appointments, referrals to treatment programs. help them get back into school, learning how to cook and do laundry. All those basic things that we are often taught by our families or parents, caregivers as we grow up. So many of our youth have not had access to this. We also do outreach. So some of the youth are not ready to walk through our doors. They are scared. Life on the streets is the safest they've ever felt. And they have been really given no reason to trust an adult. So we have outreach teams that will go out into the community finding youth. And if they're not ready to come in, that's fine. We'll have them water bottles, granola bar, sit with them, chat with them, just meet them where they're at. But so many of these things are not just about meeting their basic physical needs. It is so much more than that. I'm sure there's people in the congregation who have dropped off a meal at our center before, and it's not, you're not dropping off a meal. You are, but it's not really what it's about at Cyrus Center. While yes, everyone needs to eat, as I said, so many of the youth that we work with have never been given a reason by an adult to trust them. So they don't always want to stay in our shelter. They don't want to stay in a strange bed in a strange building with people they don't know. And fair enough. But everyone does need to eat. So when we are able to provide them with a hot meal, that is a connecting point where we are able to build trust. We can have conversations. And again, this is another biblically rooted concept, being in fellowship, breaking bread with one another. And through that, we can build relationships with these youth. We had one young lady who had been living, she had set up her own little living quarters in a bush in a little forest area, and she lived there for a year. And we had our outreach teams going out to meet her, inviting her in. She wasn't ready. She was so embarrassed by her situation that she didn't want her peers to ever see her, because she just couldn't believe how she had gotten to this point. She struggled with meth addiction, and after months and months and months, we finally convinced her to have a meal. We let her sit in a room where no one would see her, and for months, she came every single day at 6 o'clock, and she ate and she left, and that was it. But it was that meal that built that sense of trust within her that one day, a youth who was actually staying in our shelter said to her, like, you got to stay here. You can trust these people. Like, nothing's going to happen to you here. And because of that, she stayed that night, and then she ended up staying with us for several months while we helped her work on a housing program. We helped her restore the relationship with her family. To this day, she's been living a sober life for over a decade now. She's happy and she is thriving. And that was because people in the community, like yourselves, decided to bring meals to Cyrus Center so that our youth could feel safe and be fed. So most importantly, what we offer are housing programs. So as I mentioned, we offer the only emergency housing, what some people might consider a shelter. Between Metro Vancouver and the Thompson Okanagan, we are the only place for youth. So we have programs for youth aged 12 to 18 and individuals aged 19 to 24. And here they get all their basic needs met, meals, they get brand new pajamas, they get to have showers, they get to have a warm, safe place to sleep. This is a critical part of our resources that we offer because we consider it like a triage for the hospital. So there might be a lot going on, but you need to get assessed to figure out what the best situation for you. As I mentioned, we want to see homes restored. We want to see youth reconciled with their families. But that's not always possible, and sometimes it is, but it takes years to get there. So we offer a number of long-term housing programs. First one we started about 2013, 2014 was Babbage House. So we utilize something we call a house parent model. So it's actually a married couple that lives in this house full time. This is their home. While yes, it is a job, it is also, they're their parents. And for the youth, so we can house up to 4 teenage boys at a time here. And they also have 2 college-aged roommates or big brother figures that live in the house with them as well. For some of these youth, it's the first time they've been able to sit down and have a family meal. Or it's the first time they've had a family outing. Maybe it's the first time they've come home and someone asked them how their day at school was. And that's what it's all about, is creating family. So much of what we do is all rooted around community and connection, and that is what Babbage House seeks to do, is provide youth with a family-like environment where they can thrive. And we've seen a number of these youth who have learned many life skills, who have worked on their relationships, spent a couple years living in this house and then actually go back to living with their families, which is truly the ultimate goal at the end of the day. 2 years ago, we started the Home at Last program. So some of our youth are able to live independently, but they still require some support. I don't know about you, but I probably could not have lived on my own at 16. I am not 16 anymore, and I still call my mom multiple times a week because I need help with various things. So to expect a 16-year-old to just move out on their own and be successful doesn't work very often. So our Home at Last program, we actually walked alongside these youth for a number of years while we helped them with things like learning how to budget, paying your bills, getting a job, graduating from high school, keeping your apartment clean. It also helps us create a relationship between the youth and the landlords. Youth are not a hot pick for landlords who want to rent out their suites. So we are able to facilitate that relationship so our youth are actually able to access housing. We can help them with financial support. This is through partnerships with local municipal governments. We're so grateful that we can do that. And then Switchback. So Switchback is our 22-bed, 15-unit apartment building. This is for youth aged 16 to 24. And this is a bit more hands-on. There were staff 24 hours a day at this facility. While youth have their own suites, they can get supports and help whenever they want. For youth who might find themselves a parents at too young of an age, they are able to live here with their children so that families get to stay together, which, as you can see, is a bit of a theme for us. We want to see families together and communities connected and just relationships intact. So Switchback does that. If youth need to go to treatment, we help them with those kind of things. So those are our 4 housing programs. Now I would just love to touch a little bit on our vision and values because that is where we see the gospel lived out and where we see how we see God calling us to action. So our vision, youth are safe and secure, homes are restored and revived, and communities are compassionate and caring. And I think the role of the local church and Cyrus Center Ministries is proof that communities can be compassionate and caring because we couldn't do what we do without the continuous support of the local church. Our values, we don't give up on people. So because God works miracles and people are infinitely valuable, we believe that there is hope for every person and situation. We are relentless in our hope for every person and family we meet and strive to extend radical Christ-like grace. We see this in the Bible with Jose and Gomer. He chooses mercy over judgment. We find restoration after brokenness. The prodigal son. We don't give up on people. Not too long ago, a few months ago, some of our staff were meeting in an office, and a young man comes running in, and he interrupts, and he says to one of our staff, he goes, "Did you tell my social worker I could do this?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "Why would you tell her that?" And she's like, "Well, because I believe that you can do this." And he's like, no one's ever told me that before. He was 18 years old, and that was the first time someone had looked at him and said, "I believe in you." 18 is too old to experience that for the first time. But we get to do that because that's how God treats us. We don't give up on people. We rely on God to show up. We believe in the power of prayer, that God can do the impossible. We believe that God transforms people's lives and also sustains us as we step into challenging situations. I know that our co-founder, Latavio, has been here on a number of occasions. And so I apologize if you heard this story before, because it is his absolute favorite story to tell for good reasons. It's a funny one, but it's also proof that God does show up. Closer to Cyrus Center's inception, there was a kid in our services who was a little bit cranky because we didn't have milk. And really needed milk this day. This kid was mad, pretty livid that we were out of milk. And he said, "You guys are Christians." He said, "If you believe in God so much, why don't you pray to your God and tell him that I want some milk?" So Les decided, absolutely, I can do that. So they take a moment to pray, asking God for milk. 1 moment later, a lady walks through the door carrying 4 jugs of milk. And so this is just it's a true story, and it's just proof that in any situation, God shows up. And we see that through the lives of the youth and the interactions we have with them. The fact that we get to put food on the table every single day. That every single day there is a bed for a youth to sleep in. Because God shows up. Our third value, we respect the diversity of everyone. We believe that everyone is made in God's image and should be treated with love, dignity, and respect. There are no requirements for accessing services at Cyrus Center, other than the fact that you need somewhere safe to stay. If you need somewhere safe to stay, you have a place at Cyrus Center. Again, Zacchaeus, the woman at the well, the Bible is filled with stories of people who were rejected by society, but Jesus made time for them. Jesus saw them and he heard their stories. There were no requirements for his time. Our fourth value, we make ourselves available. We believe that making ourselves available to others and being present in times of someone else's need is a powerful act of compassion. We make ourselves available to youth, families, community partners, and each other. It's not just about our time. We can show compassion by meeting practical needs beyond basic human needs. 2 years ago, we started something called the Youth Compassion Fund. There's a lot of things that we need to do for youth that aren't just met by just giving them a bed or a meal. So the Compassion Fund is a way where the community can get involved and give financially so that we can help provide youth in unique different ways beyond what we were always doing. So for instance, we had a young lady who was staying in our shelter. She had overcome so many obstacles, and she actually got herself enrolled in the paramedics course, and she was ready to complete it. She's still staying with us, and then she found out that her final exam for her to complete her paramedics course had been placed in Kamloops. She had no way of getting there. Our Compassion Fund was able to pay for her flights and the nights at a hotel so that she could complete her course. And now she's well on the way to an incredible career, and she lives independently, and she's doing so well. The Compassion Fund covers things like steel-toe boots. It's amazing if you can get a job, but what do you do if you can't even get the equipment to start that new job? So we can help them with that, which is really great. It's just one of those ways we make ourselves available. And fifth, we do things together. Everything we do is rooted in relationships with each other, with youth, communities, and with God. We collaborate, we cry, we pray, and we celebrate together. In the 1970s, Bruce Alexander, a professor out of Simon Fraser University, conducted a study called Rat Park. So they wanted to study the relationship between substance use, and they found that when they put rats in cages with water and substance-laced water, the rats in isolation always chose to consume the water that was laced with illicit substances every time. But then they created something called Rat Park, and this was rat paradise, essentially. And so everything that the rats need, great food, toys to play with, friends to roll around with, and water. But they also put substance-laced water beside the water, and they found that any rat that tried the substance-laced water never tried it more than once. So none became addicted to the substance, which is interesting. And then similar findings were also found following the Vietnam War. Many soldiers in the Vietnam War resorted to heroin to cope with just the life out there. But when they returned home, what they saw were unheard of rates of recovery. People no longer were relying on the substances they had been using. So what this tells us is that a lack of social connection and isolation have dramatically negative effects on a person's well-being. So we don't need scientific or social studies to tell us what the Bible already has made so very clear to us. In Ecclesiastes 4, this is what it says. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil. Yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling his past? And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This, too, is meaningless. A miserable business. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, two lie down together, they will keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not quickly broken. We do things together. Because that is how God designed us, and that is how we thrive, and that is how our youth thrive. our sixth value. We celebrate small things. Life is really messy. Situations can feel hopeless. We don't ignore small victories, and we make sure to celebrate success, whatever that may look like. Years ago, I remember a youth who struggled with just smoking too much marijuana. That was a real problem for him. He would smoke before school and end up not going to school, or if he did, he wasn't mentally present at school, or he'd leave early. One day, he didn't smoke weed till after school, so he stayed at school the whole way, even got some of his work done. I think one of our staff bought the kid a cake because, hey, we celebrate small victories. Because all that stuff matters. So what is our impact? Last year alone, we provided emergency housing for 447 individual youth. We served nearly 10,000 meals. We handed out 235 food hampers to youth and families. We have provided long-term housing through the Switch Pack to 177 different youth since 2020. In the past 18 months, our Home at Last program has provided housing for 50 youth. So why do we do this? The current state of homelessness in the Fraser Valley is still quite dire. I don't think you have to drive far or look hard to see that homelessness is prevalent right here in the Fraser Valley. We believe that on any given night, there's 178 youth without a safe place to call home right here in the Fraser Valley. 30% of respondents attributed relational breakdowns as the causes of homelessness, while another 30% just couldn't afford housing. 58% of people experiencing homelessness in the Fraser Valley struggle with addiction, and 40% of individuals experiencing homelessness have been without housing for over 2 years. So why do we still see so much homelessness? We offer these services. We are not the only ones. There's other great organizations like the Salvation Army and Ruth and Naomi's that are reaching God's people, but we still see it. These numbers highlight the current state of homelessness. What we also know is that individuals with 4 or more traumatic childhood experiences are 4 to 12 times more likely to use illicit substances. So trauma plays a big part. Children who experience violence have been found to have reduced hippocampal and amygdala volume, which is believed to increase their likelihood of engaging in riskier behaviors. From what we experience at Cyrus Center, this leads to cognitive impairment that does not fit within the DSM. Therefore, eliminating them from the eligibility of various other services that would maybe be available to people with developmental disabilities. Our youth don't fit that bill. So some of these youth that we work with are struggling with things that we don't even know how to help or what the answer is. So the cycle of homelessness is hard to break. And well, as I come close to wrapping up with you, I don't want to end on a low note, but I think it's important to know why these issues exist and why we're doing what we're doing. But we are not without hope. Our God is alive and He is at work. For 22 years, the local church has been walking alongside Cyrus Center, and we could not do what we do without the support of the local church. Like I said, when you provide a meal or drop off a batch of cookies or give a bottle of shampoo or a pair of gloves, you are telling youth that Jesus loves them. So many of the youth that we work with have maybe never stepped through the doors of the church, but they can step through the doors at Cyrus Center and experience the love of God through practical and relational care. So thank you for providing the support and the resources to walk alongside youth during their darkest hours so they can come to know the one who will draw them into the light. And that's what it's all about, and that is what our mission at Cyrus Center really is. But again, before I finish today, I would not be doing my job if I did not share with you a little bit about how you could get involved or partner with us. So as I mentioned, meals, huge part. Our meal, every single one of the meals that are served at Cyrus Center is donated by members of the community. Since the COVID pandemic, we have experienced an all-time low in our meal providers. So our Chilliwack Center in particular is always grateful for a meal that can be dropped off as a freezer meal, or you can drop it off at 5:45. Stay, serve, sit down and fellowship, and eat with our youth and our staff. There's a meal train on our website where you can sign up. We also have community fundraisers. If anyone here has ever felt a desire to go skydiving, do I have an opportunity for you? There is no age requirement, so people like to say that that might be an issue for them, but I would like you to know that last year our oldest jumper was 97 years old. And also there is no minimum age requirement, but there are weight requirements, so you can check our website for more information on that. But our Leap of Faith fundraiser happens every July, and here people sign up, raise money, and then they participate in a tandem skydive. We'll emphasize tandem. We're not asking you to jump out of an airplane on your own. So you're with highly qualified professionals. This is a great event to come out. If you don't want to jump out of an airplane, it's fine, I understand. I don't, because I've done it twice and I actually find it quite fun, so I encourage you to think about it. But it's also, there's bouncy castles, face painting, lots of fun for families and kids. My kids ask me all year, when do they get to go watch skydiving and get their face painted and get the big fancy balloons from the balloon artist. So I encourage you to check out our website for more information about that. And also volunteers. We have opportunities for volunteers to come into our center and walk alongside our youth and our staff through these journeys that I've talked about. Again, check our website for information about volunteers. I think there's a place for anyone at Cyrus that wants to get involved. If that's donating of your time or donating of your finances or coming out to our fundraisers or even just dropping off a batch of cookies. Teenagers eat a lot. I hope that I've made that point very clear that we really like food at Cyrus Center. And anyone that has teenagers know how important food is. Those are some different ways you can get involved if you are interested. Our website's a great place to find out more. And again, just thank you. I really can't emphasize enough the importance of the local church in local missions and missions abroad. So thank you for walking alongside us. Thank you for partnering with us. We are so grateful. Our co-founder often says, our work is not easy. We hear and see things that about people that no person should ever have to experience. The burden is heavy. We have incredible staff that walk alongside our youth, but it's not easy. So our co-founder often tells us, you may never see our work on this side of heaven, but just know it's being done. So thank you for allowing God's work to be done here in the community. Thank you for loving our youth so that they can experience God's love. Even if you've never been to Cyrus Center, just your church partnering with us is doing amazing things for God's kingdom. So thank you. I'll close in prayer, and then I think Richard's going to say that. So yes, thank you. Dear God, thank you so much for this church. Thank you so much for this congregation. God, we thank you for just the community that you have surrounded this ministry with that allows us to do your good work. Thank you for loving the youth, loving the people in our community that some may find hard to love. God, we know that you love them and that you hold them in your hands, God, and we thank you for being a good God. I pray for the youth that walk through our doors. Lord, I pray that they would come to know you. I pray that their needs would be met, and ultimately, God, that we bring glory to you in all that we do. Thank you for this church. God, just thank you for your goodness, your faithfulness, and God, we just pray for restoration of the families in our community. We pray for reconciliation, God, and we just pray for these youth, God, that you love. Help us love them well. Amen.
Thank you again, Maren. And just so you know,